person who likes having fun? Or are you an introvert who likes having fun once in a while? Or are you basically a fun person? If you're any of that, well, I welcome you to a scavenger hunt, which has been brought forth to you by Washura Speaks other team. The place will be Karura Forest. The pay will be 1,000 shillings. How about you start your lipa pole pole and not miss this fun event?
Indeed. A very good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where and when you're watching us from. Mujiro wa mbari ya Karigithĩ na ngwĩhoka kuma ng'ongo ciothe iria ciumaga huho mũrĩ thayũ. Today is a good day. We are here for African Kona, episode 37. It is the 21st day of February. The year is 2024. And this week people have been talking about the Prevention Week, National Prevention Week in Kenya. And one of the things that we are talking about prevention of is drugs, and that's why we are here to talk about drug addiction among the young people in the country today, and most particularly, or maybe in the continent at large. Also joining me tonight is a panel of gentlemen with familiar faces, the in-house panelists, that is Maina Ulishasha, and all the way from, he'll tell you all the way from where. And then we have Jeff Waheta in the house, and also a new face. So he'll be telling us who he is. So let me start with the old folks, so that the newbie can see what we do. So Jeff, how are you? Kindly introduce yourself and tell us maybe how your week has been since we were last here.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Jeff Waheto. My week has been very smooth, good. Yeah, ni tu joto kiasi. It's so hot out here, and it's good to see you guys again, talking about a major issue affecting our youth today. Yeah.
Indeed, thank you, Jeff, for being here. It is very hot. For those who are watching us outside the country, it is hot in this country, very hot. I don't know what we will do, but we just hope that the rains will come in as soon as they can. Mina?
Yeah. My name is Maina Olusiasha. I like to call myself a son of the soil, and my week has been hectic. And like Jeff's, I've been all about the place, doing this, doing that. But as a man, you have to do that. And as always, I'm happy to be within an African panel talking about issues affecting Africa. Yeah.
Thank you, Maina, for also being here. It's busy, but ask yourself. I heard that the good book says that the wicked shall not rest. So I think what you should be asking yourself is, according to the book, whether you should be included in the wicked list. Anyway, Patrick, you're also here. Kindly introduce yourself. Tell us what you do before we proceed.
Okay, thank you again for the opportunity to be in this panel tonight. On my side, it's at night. I'm Patrick Njue. I am a professional social worker with quite some good experience working with the youth and children. That's my area of profession. Yeah, and I love the youth because the youth are the ones who take up the Kesho's future.
Indeed.
So if we protect them and empower them, we live a good. We have expectation for the future.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Patrick, for being here. Also, we appreciate that. Now, I think Maina will be more fit to take us through this conversation. So, at this juncture, allow Maina to proceed and take us through this. I hope this week people have been talking also from Kuru's channel. People have been talking about Concordia. I don't know if you've heard about that story of that cruise ship that sank. I hope you're not taking us through that, because the stories of how that ship sank, it's just another whole story altogether. So Maina, take it away. Continue.
I can assure you that this ship is not sinking. We've been on a hiatus for a while, but we're back even better and stronger than before. Yeah, and as we start this conversation, I'd like to start it just simply. I'd like to pass on the first question to Jeff. Maybe from your point of view, what is a drug? so that from then we can understand the problem that we're now dealing with.
Okay, thank you, Collins, again. So, according to my wisdom and according to my research, a drug is anything, any substance that is illegal or legal but used for the wrong purpose, or a prescription from the doctor but used for the wrong purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. Maybe we can also hear from you, Patrick, from your point of view. What do you take as a drug? What is a drug to you?
I think Jeff has handled it well, but I can add to it that my thinking of a drug is something that once you take, okay, some are good and some are bad. So on the bad side, if you take it and it's bringing addiction to you, that's a drug because now you become a slave to it. When it's about a medicinal drug, that's positive because you need to get back to your health. So my introduction on drug.
Yeah, and I like your introduction because a lot of times we take drugs in the negative sense, but when we get sick, we take drugs. It does not mean we are addicted to them. So, Washira, from your point of view, what do you take a drug as being?
When I was in primary, my primary teacher told me the science. Those who did science, I hope what was CBC, they'll get this. Right now we are old because we are 844 city. But when we were doing science, I was told that a drug is any substance that alters the normal functioning of the body. So I think that is how I can explain a drug to be either now the way now the gentleman who has spoken before me have said, either positively, whether issued by a doctor, at the end of the day it alters, or negatively like bang and heroin and all those things. And also some things that are drugs, but many people do not count them as such, like tea, coffee. And these days I'm hearing even soda is a drug. People are addicted to Fanta orange. Mhm.
The first time I took
I know you know that well.
the first time
Yeah, it is true. But hey, I'm asking this piece of Nairobi. People, you are wondering how do what?
I know some of us in this panel might be addicted to sodas. I don't want to mention names, but I think they know themselves.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
coffee is a drug.
yeah.
So first time I
And
took coffee, I just made myself some coffee. It's first time, and after taking coffee, after taking coffee, my heartbeat was so high that I had to go home because I was working. Now my heartbeat was serious. So I think somehow coffee is a drug. Look at
yeah,
people in offices, uh, people doing their thing. It's all about coffee, coffee. So
yeah,
I think it's a point to ponder.
yeah. Must have very valid. And looking at some data on drugs and drug issues in Kenya, trying to look at the statistics from NACADA, and you realize that about 1 in every 11 people, 11 of the youth actually have consumed a drug, and one in out of every 24 have consumed more than a drug. And then I was also looking into the statistics. We find that men in the society actually consume more drugs than women. And looking at contemporary society, I think all of you agree with me that the problem with drugs is there with us. And part of solving the problem is now agreeing that, yes, we have the problem, and in realization that we have the problem, solutions to the predicament in which we find ourselves in. And for my second question of the day, I'd like to ask this to Patrick. A lot of times I ask myself personally, why would someone want to take drugs, or what leads to someone taking drugs? Because I don't think it's a conscious decision that someone makes and decides that I'll wake up today and want to start taking drugs. There must be some root cause to that person actually wanting to take the drug. So I want to understand from you, Patrick, what do you think leads us to this situation? What do you think leads us young people to this problem of drugs? What is that stepping stone for us that guides us towards drugs? Because you understand, a drug is a product whose offer creates its own demand. All I have to do for you to be addicted to a drug is to offer you that drug once. So what drives a young people to take that drug that once?
Okay. Sorry, just 1 minute. My laptop is going off. Let me come back, please. Please.
No worries, no worries.
Okay, in a minute.
I think as Patrick fixes his laptop, I could maybe pass on that question to Jeff. You're a young person. What could lead you, or what could be the driving factor towards you taking a drug, for instance?
So thank you, Collins, again. So I think most people use drugs because of maybe family environment. You see, many people are being brought up in a family environment where their family members use drugs. So there is a likelihood that some of the members of the family will use drugs. The second concern is curiosity. Some people are curious, just they want to explore. They will just want to use drugs. So I think curiosity is a major influence. The third I can say is social and peer influence. You see, social circles and friends, you want to fit in a certain social circle or friendship. So you'll find yourself trying to use that drug. Yeah. And the last one is stress and coping mechanisms. You find people are elevating to drugs to try and avoid stress. Yeah, I think that calls.
Thank you for that, Jeff. And you know, this school, Washira, you follow a school of thought that says all you know is that you don't know. And I think in observing that school of thought, in admitting that you don't know, you try to find information from various sources. But a lot of times the information you get is not very valid information. Because sometimes you even listen to the news and you hear someone saying this drug has this and this medicinal purpose. And a lot of us as the youth don't take this into context. We just take their word for it. We assume whatever they're saying is true. Because even last year, when we were having, the year before, when we were having our presidential elections, there was a candidate who was proposing a certain drug, saying that it has this and this benefits. So, as a young person listening to that, it's very easy for you to be drawn into that without actually taking it into context and understanding what he's saying. So, in admitting that a lot of young people have been misinformed, whether by their peers, whether by the news, whether by disinformation shows, do you think that that's an issue leading young people to drugs? And if yes, that's an issue leading young people to drugs, how can we handle this situation so that young people know that not all the information they're given is valid? They have to question all that they're given to determine the validity of these statements.
Yeah, I hear you. And we all know about this saying that knowledge is indeed power. So knowledge is power, and let me refer to the good book again. It says that my people, watu wangu wanaangamia kwa sababu ya kutojua njia. I don't know what verse that is, so don't ask me. However, what I can say is this, that we do not know these things. We actually do not know as young people, or a majority of young people don't know these things, and they don't want to know, or they don't take their time to know more about these things. They actually like to go with the na vibe, wanataka kwenda na ile vibe na hiyo rhythm yenye nasema, like you remember that time when let me just mention because it was there when presidential election candidate Wajakoya was advocating for the legalization of marijuana, and they are giving all manner of sorts of excuses, which some valid, some are not valid in my own opinion. So people are going with that vibe, and they do not even want to get into details. They don't want to find out more about these things themselves. And it is unfortunate because this is the most learned generation that Kenya has ever seen. So how then do you explain now that the most learned population that Kenya has ever seen is not interested in knowing more about these things? They are actually more addicted compared to the baby boomers, compared to the millennials that were there before us. So you can imagine. So what I'm saying is this, that people should get to know more about these things when they're saying them. When you're trying to justify an evil, and I don't know why, I'll use that phrase loosely. I don't know why human beings, we always like to justify things, justifying doing bad things. making it seem cool, making it seem like it is nice, and making those people who are doing the right thing, and you deep down you know they're doing the right thing, you make them feel as if they're doing the bad thing. So we as young people, it is high time we find more information on these things, like these drugs. We should know them. Let me let me just say this also in a friendly manner. Like Patrick was going to take coffee for the first time and the heart was beating. You know, maybe we should like find out what kind of coffee is this. There are various types of coffee. Some are strong, you know, like the Americano, and some are not as strong. So we should start from the point of information, because from the point of information, then there is power, there is control, and there is everything. So I think that is my response to that, Minor.
I like that response of questioning whatever we are told and not taking everyone's word for being right. And what you said is actually true, because I remember when I was younger, taking drugs was shunned a lot. Because if you had someone was taking bang, even if you passed by them on the road, you had to change the side you're walking on, pass by this other side, because to you, you believed taking bang was the ultimate form of evil. But looking at the situation now, even looking at the statistics, there's been a rise of actually more than 90% of use of cannabis, which is shocking because, like you say, this is the most educated generation, but it looks like we are taking a step backwards on these issues to do with drugs. And in this panel, I'd like to take it to a very personal point of view. I had a friend, a personal friend, a male friend, who along the way got lost in the issues of drugs and struggled with it for a while, close to 2 years. And up to now, he's still struggling with it. Although I can say by now he has just found himself and recovered from what was ailing him. And he was a male friend. So this leads me to my next question. Why is it that a lot of the people taking drugs in our generation are men? Is it that we've given too much focus to the girl child such that the boys have now been left with nothing to do? They are venturing into drugs. Because I remember even on the news this week, there's been a lot of talk on issues to do with drugs, particularly in Kirinyaga, where 17 people lost their lives, and most of them were men. So I'd like to understand from you, from your point of view, Patrick, what is driving us men towards taking these drugs, and what perhaps dissuades ladies from indulging in drugs as much as men do? Sorry, Patrick, I think you're muted.
Oh, sorry. My view about the boy child. You see, the boy child has this manly nature where you want to feel you're the conqueror and you're the lead, you know. And
Yeah,
there's also the factor of social media. So when everyone is flaunting about drugs, making it look so cool, everyone wants to wants to get brainwashed by the idea. You get? So we find the boy child going into it so much. That could be one factor. But again, we've also supported the girl child so much that we've forgotten the boy child. Because now you need a balance. You need a balance. Because even if you educated all the girls and left the boy child alone, see now who will marry the girl child?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Okay.
so it's time now we give it a different approach. Give it to the boy child now. Let's balance. Let's cause some gender mainstreaming. Let's ensure the boy child also can get all the interventions that the girl child is getting, like mentorship. These days we don't have people who are mentoring the boy child. Many families are dysfunctional. Probably the dad is not there. So what do we expect of this boy child? He has no father figure. You know, a friend of mine today asked me, what is that one thing you'd like uh, what is that one thing that was never done to you but you like it done to someone else? So a friend gives an answer like, I wish someone like talked to me throughout the journey. So meaning that if we had like sessions where either the government or CSOs have built like a youth friendly center, you'll find that the boy child can come there, share ideas, get mentored. But right now we don't have things like the field, which is an advocating thing, because nowadays games can take the boy child from the streets. Because akika, if the boy child is just seated idle, we all know an idle mind is the devil's workshop. You get something. Unajua, they say like drugs ensure like you can just have time passing and nothing is happening, but in a duration you are now addicted. It's again you want to stop what you've been taking. So I think it's the high time CSOs, uh, teams joined hands, mnatembea to a certain school, talk to the boy child, engage them in sports. They also can speak out. Unajua, many people say like men don't speak, but trust me, in a good environment they will speak because they just want to feel the trust. And men don't want to be in that position where you're talking to someone and then there's no trust between you. You don't want to lose the man nature again. So you need someone to trust so that you can talk. And I believe if the boy child talked, a lot would happen. Most people will not be in drugs and probably will also be creating future fathers. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that you said men don't speak well. And I just noted that you're in a platform called Washira Speaks, full of men speaking. So men actually speak out and air their issues. Yeah, and Jeff, you know, I know you watch movies a lot, and within these movies, there is a lot of drug and substance abuse promotion, which to a young mind might seem very, very appealing. Because if you see someone smoke or drink in the movie, and that's someone you admire, you could very easily be drawn into that mess or into that addiction. So I'd like to understand from your point of view, what can we as young people do to dissuade maybe those who don't know from actually following what they see in movies? Because I know from someone they respect and they admire. What can we do to dissuade them from following these practices? Because in these movies they're actually not taking actual drugs. If you look into it, they're just using props and not actual drugs. Someone might be taking apple juice and you, Jeff, are convinced that I saw him drinking. Why don't I go and buy a bottle of gin? And that is a falsehood. He's not actually taking what he perceives or he seems to be taking. Yeah.
Okay, Collins. Before I present my views, I remember kitambo nilikuwa napitia karibu na mtu anavuta sigara ama bangi. I used to hold my air until the air is clean, alafu na breathe out. So how can we, how can we help our young people because they are misinformed by hawa watu wanaona like their mentors. So I can say our young people can first collaborate with tech magurus to help improve algorithms and engine search results to provide accurate information concerning drugs. The second point is to give education. Tell these young people what you see on TV is not what actually those people do. When we provide our young people with critical thinking skills and give them a chance to think for themselves, I think it is better. They will take that matter personally. Yeah. And then the other point is to collaborate with these influencers and celebrities. Tell them to tell our people the truth. Although they are acting their movies or they are mentors of these young people, they should also put real content and tell people, "Look, this is acting. You should do this. And don't. It is harmful." Or if the celebrities are using, tell them if you use excess, it is harmful. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jeff. And in this conversation thus far, we've been pointing our fingers at the young generation for what they are doing. But perhaps there might be people from the school of thought that the blame lies not only on the young people, but also the distributors, because these drugs have to come from somewhere. That's why you hear of stories like Madhe Wangara in the news, these people supplying drugs to young children. So, Washira, there are two sides of the story. So, who do you think the blame lies on? Because if there is no product, there is no that addiction. If there is no drug, there is no young people being addicted to drugs. So do you think that the distributors of these products should be blamed just as much as the young people? Because if you take the case of alcohol, for instance, if you're on YouTube, there are ads, multiple ads of people promoting alcohol. There are multiple ads of people promoting cigarettes, e-cigarettes. So why do we allow them to promote these products while in hindsight it could come to ruin the lives of these young people?
Okay, allow me before I get to that to first of all react to or kind of connect it with what has been happening in the country for the past week or within this period. Um, in Kirinyaga, we have seen what has happened. I come from that side of the country near that big mountain where men are languishing in alcohol addiction. They are losing their eyesight. Some of them are going as far as dying. In Kirinyaga, they buried 17 bodies. You can imagine out of alcohol. You see, my concern is this, or rather, what I'm thinking is this: is that before we even say we are tackling this problem, I'm a believer of when you're tackling a problem, you go back to the roots. And various people are giving various reasons as to why some situations, like in central Kenya, because that is sort of where it is worse. They give various explanation as to why that place is so having such kind of cases. Is from Nyeri, although we have been hearing our deputy president fighting against that, and also the second lady, Dr. Dorcas, fighting against that. However, um, I've heard Patrick say something about idleness, but allow me to differ with that, because I do not believe that idleness is justification for people to do some certain things. Now, we are normally used to hear that power is not given, it is taken. Now, I like to put it this way: despite the fact or the unfortunate scenarios that have been happening in our country for over the period that we have been alive, and the people who were there even before us, hope is not given, guys, these days. Hope is taken. So you have to give yourself hope, regardless of the situation that is going on, so that you do not justify yourself being a drug addict because there's no jobs, because there is no. I don't know what has been happening. There are so many problems that are there in the world. Just the way like power is not given, is taken. The same way we as young people should say, hope is not taken. Hope is not given these days. We take hope for ourselves. Now, even if we go back now to the question that you have asked directly, where is the problem? Where are we now having where the road meets the rubber? The suppliers are there, they're doing their business, and it is justified. So commercially, you're living in a capitalistic society. And the people who are now the clients, or the people who are the victims of those businesses, are mostly the young people. I think this, and I don't know how they have been reasoning, or the government has been looking at it. I think that the best way for us to end these things is not ending it at the source, because even if you close all bars in the country, somebody who's addicted will just find another way to be addicted. They'll find another way to be high. There are so many ways. Okay, I'm not saying that I know, but I've ever heard that there are so many ways for somebody to be intoxicated. So even if you close all the bars, you close all the points of entry in this country, what people will always be on drugs, if they want to. So the best way to handle this is not the suppliers closing the bars in Kirinyaga or whatever part of this country, but trying to settle or make sure that these people who are now taking it, the victims, the clients, if I can use that word, have the control or have sorted their issue out. Because now, if you do not have buyers, call minor, if you're not having clients in your business, the business will not survive. So definitely it will die a natural death. So I think that is my reaction to that.
Yeah, very valid reaction. And as I allow Patrick to respond to what you said about idleness, I could see him. He's waiting to rebuttal and give you his opinions and thoughts on it. I know, Patrick, you've dealt with young people in this sort of situation who are maybe addicted to drugs, and in questioning their reasons for being addicted to drugs, issues like stresses and pressures of life come about. So, in your expertise, how do you advise these young men and women to deal with the stresses of life? Because there are a lot. Life is not easy. It's very tough, especially for young people. Because I think this is the time that they've just come out of home and they're just trying to figure out what life is. And if you're not that well prepared, it hits you hard, and you might end up getting into these drugs. So, from an expert opinion, what do you do to sort of dissuade these young people from going the way of drugs, and encouraging them basically to stay on the correct path of life?
Thank you again. So again, I come back to idleness. Um, sometime back in when I think it's a life cycle for everyone. When you're done with maybe university, some take some time before getting some work, and I can tell you those are the longest hours, and those are the hours you meet with everyone else who's been doing everything, and you need to cope up with everything that is happening in your life. So first, you're just handling every pressure. It's a new change. It's like you're transitioning now from school to a place where you're depending on yourself. You have every bill, you're free, you don't know how you'll pay them. And then you have the longest hours. What do you do? A questioning from having worked with a child who was addicted to drugs, questioning the child was like, if only I could go to school, I know I would have stayed out of drugs. But now the child is home, nothing is happening. The friends are coming, they are playing, yes, but there's no school for him or her. They're just at home. So you find that ensuring that the youth are active, let's say it's in a community where you have a field, and most of the boys after school they don't get like work immediately. So after that they have a hustle during the day where they can attend, and maybe at 3 at around 3 p.m. they come in for practice, maybe football. So engaging the youth. And the funny thing about men is they will always be pulled, they will always be mobilized by football in a very easy way. They'll come together, and you have a platform to inform them. Because again, if we look at the intervention that are provided, we are doing more of a curative kind of approach, where we are waiting for someone to get addicted, and then they go to the rehabilitation center. Everyone is working on that to reform them. But what would happen if we share the information? Because, like you said, Washira, information is power. Why can't we invest on sensitization? Why can't we bring the youth through sports together and then talk about drugs? I know many organizations that are willing to partner with you when you want to sensitize on drugs because it's an issue. And partnership is making it easier because you don't have to own the whole thing. You just have to mobilize, maybe work a few logistics, and then invite the partner to talk on that. So I think we also need to change the approach, go the preventative way, where we are doing sensitization, engagement, over the curative way. The curative way is never the end. It never ends any any social problem. It just cultivates it, receiving the product. Whereas you could have quoted, yeah, you could have done a lot before that person got into the bit of their life. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, and to sum up our conversation, I think we have all agreed that indeed there is a problem to do with drugs in contemporary society, and us just doing this show is trying to address that problem. So as we close up, I'd just like to hear your personal opinions on what you think the future holds. Is it bright? Is it bleak? Or is it just there? So I'd like to hear, starting from Jeff, first of all, what do you think the future looks like for especially the youth in contemporary society?
Okay, Collins, I believe the future is bright because of this. You see, there are
Drugs
some
mostly.
most there are most youths using drugs, but there are fewer ones who are not using and they have the knowledge to help those who are using. We may be few who are not using, and the major who are using are more, but the little can impact the major. So I believe we can change the world. The youth should not lose hope. There's a bright future ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And Washira or Patrick, as you give your final remarks on what the future looks like, I can see a comment from Steve Ngaire saying, "Does knowing include using it since experience is the best teacher?"
Come again, I lost you.
Yeah, there's a question here from Steve Ngaire. He's asking, does knowing include using it since experience is the best teacher?
I think knowing it is also important because you get to experience the whole transition, what happens. And like for my case, growing from the ghetto now, where the ghetto, I saw a meme saying like in ghetto you don't wake up to an engineer, you don't wake up to an accountant, because majorly the place. Okay, you know the state of a ghetto, right? Okay. So having stayed in ghetto, I can tell you like drugs are on the expos. Like everywhere you go, drugs are there. You everyone knows about everything that is happening there. It's a small village. Everyone is aware of everything that is happening. So through listening, through working with boys, and through talking to friends, I know they are there. So I would say knowing it is important because it keeps you away from it, and experiencing it, seeing the changes in people, and seeing how life is messed by drugs makes you believe now there's no option other than staying away from it. That's why I was saying we need to get information so that you stay away from it.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think you could maybe just tell us from you, what do you believe our future looks like in terms of addressing this issue of drugs, particularly among the youth?
The future is bright, especially with the changes in the education system, where the CBC is coming in. It calls for creativity. It's calling for being you, expressing your strengths and your weaknesses. And recently, I was passing by and I saw a small boy built like something like a motorbike with stones. And my thoughts were like, this boy is thinking on how he can connect maybe in future and become an engineer. He's just seeing it in a small way, but he can move the dream if he's placed in a good environment. So I think the future is bright. The future is bright because I think if the CBC system caught up with me, I think I would have been more creative. I would have been more creative. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And it's good to hear from you, the expert, that our future is bright and not bleak. And seeing that in keeping with what Washira said, that hope is not given, hope is taken. So Washira, as we finish up, from you, what do you think the future holds for us?
Yeah. I hope also as Jeff is preparing to take us out, Jeff, I hope you'll be ready to take us out of the show. But before we wrap it up, there's a comment that has come in through in my side from Dunga, and he's saying that I think it is equally important to both the addict to make a decision to change, and also to deal with the supplier. And he also says, I believe in out of sight, out of mind. So when the drugs are out of sight, it's easier to overcome them. Now, to wrap it up, the conversation to today, you see, drugs is not a good thing, fellow young people. It is not. I have seen within the few years that I've been alive, I've seen how destructive drugs can get. I've never seen any, and I'm talking about those hard drugs. I've never seen any positive result from drugs. The only something that you can say is positive is people who now end up fighting it, and they come to give us the good news that I have fought this issue. However, Jeff, you remember the other day when we were saying that some few people understand this at Igolo no Rikiki. As it, I can for me, no Rikiki. I don't know how I can explain. There is hope, yes, but young people, I believe I am under the impression that I'm a very hopeful person. I see hope in the future, because I believe as long as let me refer. I think today, mine, I'm really touched to refer to the good book. So let me
Yeah, the part of the
today I'm just in the mood. Let me just refer to it one more time. And now when I'm seeing that there is hope, even though the hope is very far, I can see the hope really dimming, and I hope that it will be brighter as the years go by, because young people, especially men from the community that I come from the mountain, we are losing it. We are losing it, and we are burning a lot of people, and it is high time we do something about it. However, remember the story of Abraham. I don't know if it's Abraham or Moses. I think it's Abraham, and he was speaking to God, and he was asking God, if I find at least 50 people who have not, blah blah blah, will you finish? And God says, I will save them. And he asked, what about 30? What about 20? What about five? What about one? And the Lord still said that I will spare them. So, for us who are here, the four of us, talking and preaching this gospel of drug prevention, I can say that without fear of error or contradiction, that there is hope, so much hope, because now, even if the end of times will come and drugs is now the issue here, there will be hope, because there will be at least four of us who will speak on behalf of the nation and on behalf of young people and say, at least we tried our best. So, my message to young people is, yes, as you're talking about prevention is better than cure. You have been hearing that since time immemorial. Let us stop taking drugs. And if you have never gotten into drugs, kindly never get into it. Let us preach the message of prevention more than the message of cure. I think that is my final comment, Minor.
Yeah, thank you for that. You've quoted the good book a lot today, and there is a story somewhere in the good book where the good Lord changed water into wine, and we might be preaching against that today, but it was just on a light note. And I must say, your points of view have been very valid. It has been an interesting showing me. I think it's something we need to build on, because drugs are not something you talk about once and then the story is done and dusted. I think sometime in future we'll do this show again and see if things have changed. And for me, I also believe the future is bright, and it might seem tough to get there, but I'd like to keep with what you're saying, and that book also says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So it might look tough, the stresses of life might be there, the pressures might be there, but if you follow him, or if you are from that school of thought, eventually everything will pan out and be well, basically. So that was all from us today. See you next week with a different topic, but the panel still remains. Yeah, thank you, and have a good night or good day or good evening, depending on when and where you're watching us from.
Okay, thank you. As we wrap up, yeah, I have a conclusion. Thank you, Maina, Washira, and Patrick. It's been very engaging conversation. We hope this conversation, someone will watch it and will impact him, or he will use this knowledge to impact somebody else. So my conclusion, one way I really researched something, and one way to stop youth from using drugs is providing another safe and alternative environment. So how? By having a space where you can just come, fun, socialize. So we have this for you on 16th March. We have an event for you. It's only 1,000 Kenyan shillings. Come. Yeah, and Washira, may you tell us about the location of the event before we close the show?
Yeah, before we wrap it up, I think Jeff, have put it really, really, really well. That one of the ways to prevent drugs is also to keep yourself engaged. Now, let me draw now to Patrick's message. Yeah, don't be idle. So, in a way of not being idling, you can come to. But now they'll say they don't have money. But I've said hope is taken; it's not given. So, we have an event coming up. It's called the Treasure Hunt, stroke the Scavenger Hunt, whichever name you prefer, and we will be doing it. We had initially talked about Karura Forest, but we have changed the venue. and we are taking it even to a more better place known as the Word of Life in Kabete. So we will be handing over or giving more information on how to get to the venue for those people who have paid, and those for who will want to pay later. All the information will be across our social media platforms and also the website. And also, Jeff, as I wrap up, maybe people have heard me quoting the book and they're wondering, people are sending in messages here. I have not changed. I am still Mutagi wa Shirawanyara, Mojiro wa Bali ya Karigithe, Thayo, Thayo, Thayo. Jeff, take it away.
You can follow us on all social media platforms at Wachira Speaks. Follow, subscribe, and share. We need to change our young people. Yeah, our social media platforms, and we have our website www.wachiraspeaks.com. Thank you. Have a good night.